This is the single most insane thing I've ever done. And no, I'm not talking about that time that I parked my bucket truck on the very edge of a really high ramp, extended the boom arm all the way out to its absolute maximum, and tried to lift a turn-of-the-century giant hunk of cast iron off of the building, not knowing if the truck could even handle it, if it would tip over, or if it would end in catastrophic failure. And no, I'm not talking about the time I tried to lower a 250-pound steam heater out of a 12-foot ceiling with nothing more than a sketchy Harbor Freight scaffolding, or the time I risked complete public humiliation when I tried to paint a 400 square feet mural with no experience on the side of the building. And it wasn't even the time I tried to lower a super heavy riding lawnmower down a 60-foot elevator shaft with nothing more than a $150 sketchy Harbor Freight electric winch. No, I'm talking about the time that I called all of my friends and family, pulled in a lot of favors to try to scratch together the money to buy this gigantic brick building from 1919, which was the former home of the Buster Brown Shoe Company plant in Charleston, Illinois. I spent $20,000 that I didn't have to buy this. A 66,000 square foot, 3-acre behemoth of chaos. And let me tell you, it has taken everything from me. Physically, financially, mentally, and emotionally. It's been over 2 years of back-breaking work, sleepless nights, and relentless setbacks. People keep asking, why would you do this to yourself? And honestly, I'm starting to wonder the same thing. But here's the kicker. This building, as much as it's destroying me, just might be the only thing that can save me. Let me show you why. I grew up in the shadow of this brick giant. I remember walking past this building every day when I was a kid, hand in hand with my grandpa. We'd look up at it, and he'd always wonder aloud, what's inside there? What would it be like to own a place like that? He was a local handyman and did business with the then owner, who owned a plumbing and heating company. This building was nothing less than a monolith in our neighborhood, but also something distant. Breaking windows out of the building has become a town sport for more than 40 years. It was a place where kids dreamed of breaking in and exploring, and they often did just that.
It wasn't me.
The previous owner was, let's say, a big fan of auctions and worked diligently for decades to fill the building. This all added to the mystery. I moved away years ago to Poland, and thinking back on those walks with my grandpa, I now understand what the building meant to my town and the community. It was one of the only non-agrarian employers for miles, and everybody had an aunt, uncle, grandparent, or friend who worked there making Buster Brown shoes. As a kid, I never considered that. I just looked forward to those walks with my grandpa. Life moves on, and I've lived in Poland for almost 20 years now. One day, during a trip back home, I noticed something that stopped me dead in my tracks. This building, the one we'd passed by every day. It was up for sale. It was like fate, or maybe just pure coincidence that I drove by, but I just had to call about it out of pure curiosity. The local realtor was glad to come and show it to me. She said the asking price was $30,000. But the moment she pulled up, let me in to check it out, she said, good news, the price dropped to $20,000. And I am, at my core, a dreamer, an optimist, and somewhat of a visionary. When it came to dodging this bullet, I didn't have a prayer. She said all the stuff goes with the building, which was a selling point at the time, but has since revealed itself to be one of the most challenging aspects of this entire odyssey. But I didn't care. This wasn't just a piece of history that had stood there for decades. It was an opportunity to take something that had been forgotten, something that was risk of being lost, and give it a second chance. To breathe new life into a place that had been a part of my family story, part of my town's history, and now a chance to make it part of my story. I've long had a dream of importing industrial furniture and antiques from Eastern Europe, and I just couldn't stop thinking about how awesome this place would be for a showroom. I didn't have a clue what I was in for. But I was born in 1974 and consider myself a child of the 80s. And I grew up on movies. And in those days, it seemed as if every single movie featured a character who lived in a loft-style apartment in New York or some giant city. It was an apartment that was in an abandoned warehouse. A space like that was like the pinnacle of cool. You know what I'm talking about. And now I could be the star of my own movie. I could have one of those spaces as my own. When I first walked inside this building after I bought it, I had no idea what I was getting into. I thought I was going to walk in, take a look around, and make a plan. I mean, there were so many things I could sell to earn the $20,000 back. That shows the truly weak mindset that I had going into this. What I found was a mountain of stuff, a literal mountain. It was like every object ever discarded by the town had somehow ended up in here. From old tools and vintage items, piles of broken furniture, and strange unidentifiable objects, it was clear. This wasn't just a factory, it was a time capsule. A place frozen in the past, waiting to be rediscovered. But that doesn't mean it was easy to uncover. Much of it was damaged, useless, rotten, missing parts, unidentifiable. There are so many things in this building that sell for thousands of dollars on eBay. But when I look deeper into those items, they've been listed for years and haven't sold. They're so obscure that finding the person that actually needs them requires a miracle. Meanwhile, it's just in the way, underfoot, and continuing to deteriorate. I've spent the better part of the first 2 years just sorting through all of this mess. And I mean mess. When I say this place was packed, I'm not exaggerating. There were so many things in here, so much junk, that I could barely walk through the building at all. The building is roughly 400 feet long, not counting the annex, and 3 floors packed floor to 12-foot ceilings with only tiny paths to walk through. The simple cleanout is a bigger, more impossible project than most entire renovations as a whole building. No, this was a monumental task, and I'm still not done. This building was on the verge of being demolished. It was a ticking clock, and if I didn't act fast, everything would be lost. After 2 years of cleaning, emptying, hauling, recycling, scrapping, selling stuff, there's still no end in sight. Here's a bit of a glimpse into how misguided I was in the beginning. Looking back, I calculate that at a bare minimum, the building would require 130-yard dumpsters. At $650 per dumpster on a good day, that is, if you think about it, that's like $65,000, not including transport costs and the infinite labor hours. And that's all before a single one of 2.5 million broken windows can be fixed, before a single actual meaningful thing can be done to the building. I like to joke that someday in the future, someone's gonna ask, wow, how much did it cost to accomplish all this? And I'll say, well, when I started, I had about $47. So if you're new to the channel, let me bring you up to speed on some of the other things to give more context about what I've gotten myself into. I live in Poland, overseas, and at the age of 50, I recently had my first son. He's too young to fly to the US, and so every time I come to work at the building, I'm leaving him behind. It's so painful, it makes me physically ill to be away from him. Here's some of the footage of a few of my homecomings, and please forgive me if my voice cracks just a bit in these clips. Sammy! Sammy! Come here! Come here! What you doing? What you doing? Oh, baby! Oh, we missed you. Mwah. Ah. Sammy. 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 Ah. Oh. Oh. Hey. But back to the task at hand. The building is experiencing a lot of entropy. I don't have a gigantic budget. I'm not a YouTube channel that has the means to bring in heavy equipment every week for an amazing bit of progress and transformation that can be buttoned up into a single viral video. As a matter of fact, there's a catchphrase that the building provides on this channel. That's one of the only blessings of all the stuff in the building. We're using the contents to achieve our goals, repurposing, scavenging, basically defying all of the common sense on so many levels. And if that didn't seem like enough of a challenge, I should also admit right up front that I'm not a YouTuber who can make evergreen how-to videos. I don't make DIY style content. I like to joke that this is a DI don't channel because I'm barely hanging on and getting through it one challenge at a time. The variety of required knowledge and the random things that come up on a project like this, a project of this scale, is truly mind-boggling. I make way more mistakes on this journey than successes. Some of them are truly humiliating, but I'm committed to showing and sharing the truth of the process. I don't pretend to know things that I don't know or edit out all of the failures before I stick a landing. And honestly, that level of transparency is not easy. But here I am, moving into my 50s with this epic bucket of new experiences, learning opportunities, failures, and successes, meaning and purpose, a sense that someday I'm going to be proud of what I've accomplished. That kind of thing doesn't come along every day. In the early days of this channel, there were so many comments that were disheartening. This guy's crazy. This guy is in way too deep over his head. This is a train wreck, etc. That was 2 years ago now, and although I haven't yet proved myself against all of those comments, and I must admit I have secretly and not so secretly held that exact same doubt and those judgments against myself in my own mind, I look back now and I think I haven't been whipped yet. I'm still moving forward. I'm still chipping away at it. And as sketchy as the backgrounds and the videos are, I estimate that the building contents have been reduced by about 70%. And I've learned so much along the way. And back to the enormous task at hand. This isn't just about cleaning up. This is about saving a piece of history. There were huge challenges, and there are still huge challenges ahead. Leaks in the roof, crumbling bricks, an elevator that was more of a relic than a functional part of the building, and a mess of wires. 100 years of electric installed over and over again without removing the previous stuff, and pipes that didn't seem to go anywhere, structural issues, water damage, over 500 broken windows that continue to be broken by local kids every day, 3 acres of jungle, and then there was the sheer volume of stuff, things I couldn't get rid of fast enough. I had to clear everything out, but the city wouldn't let me hold a sale in the building. Most of the items weren't worth much, and moving them all outside to sell was a challenge. It would take months to move it all outside. Rain would ruin everything, and dumpsters were $600 each. You can see how that's a bit of a headache. At first, it felt like I was just spinning my wheels. I was doing a lot of work, scattered, disorganized, unfocused, and the progress seemed excruciatingly slow at best. And let me be clear, I'm not a construction expert. I had no prior experience at fixing things, no background in restoration. This wasn't some DIY project where I had a clear guidebook to follow. I didn't know what I was doing most of the time. But that's where I want to stop beating myself up. I did have a few strengths on my side, the most formidable of which is iron willpower. The scale of this project cannot be underestimated. Day after day after day of working dark till dark, cold, pushing the limits of what my 50-year-old body can handle, all the time keeping my self-doubt at bay. There are no guarantees that this will not end in a cataclysmic failure, and a public one at that. But I do have iron willpower, and I will see this through. That is a problem for visionary dreamers, sticking to something and actually putting in the work to realize one of those dreams before moving on to that next dream. Something I haven't always been great at, but this time I will. And I have 2 solid years of vetting to prove it behind me. But willpower isn't a substitute for know-how. I also quickly learned that I couldn't do this alone. I needed help, and that's where Bob came into the picture. Bob was a godsend. We met in a pretty incredible way. He saw a video of mine where I mentioned I needed a power washer to clean the brick walls in the building. Bob, who lives far away in Missouri, just so happened to be driving down the street and saw a power washer that someone had discarded out on the street corner. He picked it up, fixed it, and reached out to me. He had no reason to do this other than the kindness of his heart. He offered to come up and bring it to me, and he did so from more than 3 hours away. We met, hit it off, and since then, Bob has been a huge part of this project. He's knowledgeable, experienced, and more than anything, generous with his time and expertise. He's been helping and mentoring me with everything from plumbing to windows to fixing elevators. You don't expect new mentors to come into your life after 50, but it has been an incredible blessing. If it weren't for Bob, I would still be lost in a sea of questions with no idea what I was doing and how to get focused on the job ahead. But he's helped me build confidence in the process, and he's been patient with me as I learn, and that's what makes all the difference. And it wasn't just Bob. There's also Neil, a guy who's in his 80s who reached out after seeing the channel. Neil's been a huge asset as well. When I ran into trouble with the elevator, Neil came up and helped troubleshoot. And between him and Bob and myself and Neil's friend Kern, we figured out that all the mechanical components of this antique elevator were still working. Oh, at the moment, we still need to tackle the electronics. It's a puzzle, but with their help, it's starting to make sense. And we'll eventually have the old thing working again. And if you're interested in really cool old elevators, there's a playlist here on the channel with a lot of videos about the whole process from the very beginning. And it's moments like that that remind me why I'm doing this. It's not just about fixing a building. It's about bringing people together. It's about creating a community around something that matters. And that's what this project has become. It's no longer just my project. It's something bigger than that. It's about honoring the past while building something new. It's about restoring this factory, but it's also about restoring a sense of pride in myself, my hometown, and this building, and in the work that goes into it. Let's be real. This is just the beginning. There's so much more to do. The fire suppression, the climate control, the new bathrooms and parking, issues with the roof, structural issues. These are all huge expenses, but we'll get there, one step at a time. This building has always provided what we need, and I believe that it will continue to do so. It's like it wants to be saved. Every time we need something, conduit, plumbing, hardware, we find it in the building. It's uncanny, almost like it's telling us to keep going. At this point in the project, things are starting to take shape, slowly but surely. We're bringing the factory back to life, and while it may look like a mess to most people, to me it's a glimpse of what it can be. Every crack I fix, every window I glaze, every beam that we restore, it feels like I'm inching closer to something bigger, something that will not only change the building, but also change the community around it, and that's where the real challenge lies. One of the major hurdles has been funding. I'm not rich, far from it, and this project is pretty darn far from cheap. Fire suppression systems, climate control, new bathrooms, parking repairs, electric plumbing, code compliance, it all adds up quickly. Some of these expenses are huge, and I'm still figuring out how to pay for them. I visited with the local Chamber of Commerce and the Small Business Development Center to see what options are out there for grants and loans. But even with all the research and planning, the money just isn't falling into place in a way that I'd hope. Still, I'm optimistic we'll make it happen because we have to. Imagine this space filled with people celebrating life's milestones, a wedding reception, a fundraiser, a concert. Imagine local artists showcasing their work, or areas in the building with so many windows would be great for an art studio, or small businesses hosting workshops. That's the vision that we're working toward, but we're not there yet. There's still so much to be done, and the venue space is just the start. As we complete this section, we'll be able to take the money that it generates and pour that into restoring the next section and the next section. It's the long game, but it's the only way to move forward. Sometimes it feels the more I work on this place, the more problems I uncover. The building has a way of showing you exactly how much it needs to be done 1 mile at a time. Everything is an emergency. And trust me, that list is long. The roof leaks, the foundation needs work, tuck pointing is unthinkable, certain beams are in imminent danger of collapsing. And that's before you get to all the systems that are outdated or completely shot. There's never a shortage of work, but that's what you sign up for when you take on a project this big. If you can find satisfaction, meaning, and purpose in the journey, you've won half the battle. There are days when it's overwhelming. I won't sugarcoat it. Some mornings I wake up and think, how did I get myself into this mess? It especially hits me hard each time I come back from Poland. It's a shock every time. I can't explain it. The building is huge, the work is never ending, and every time I think I've made progress, there's something else that pops up. But here's the thing, giving up is never an option. No matter how much I wish for the easy way out, I know show must go on. To be honest, I don't always have the answers. I've never done anything like this before. I'm learning as I go, but that's what this journey is all about. There are no shortcuts. There's no blueprint for this kind of thing. It's messy, it's imperfect, and it's not a Hollywood story, so there's no guarantee that there's going to be a happy ending. But it's real. And none of this would be possible without the help of the people that have stepped up along the way. Bob didn't have to help me. He didn't know me from anyone else. But he saw something in this project, he saw potential, and that's what's kept me going through the tough days. Knowing that there are people out there who believe in what I'm doing, people who are willing to lend a hand, it makes all the difference. It's easy to feel alone in a project like this, but the truth is, I've never really been on my own. There's Neil and Jake and his family, and then there's the bigger picture. When I step back and look at everything that's been done, I can see the future. I can see the venue buzzing with activity, weddings, concerts, town meetings. I can see people gathering here, sharing, celebrating, learning, growing, and that's what keeps me motivated, because I know that when it's finished, this will be more than just a building. It'll be a community hub, a place that will continue to give long after the work's done. I know that not everyone believes in this project. There are people here, even subscribers, who look at this place and think it's too far gone, that it's beyond saving. But I don't believe that. This building has a soul. It has history. It has the potential to be something great again. And I'm willing to put every single thing that I have into bringing it back to life. So yeah, the struggle's real. There are days when it seems impossible, but there are also moments, little victories, small wins that keep me going. And when this project is finally done, when the building is fully restored, I'll know it wasn't just about fixing up bricks and mortar. It was about perseverance, community, and the belief that anything is possible if you just keep pushing forward, even when it seems like it's never going to work. But none of this happens without help. None of this happens without the support of so many people. Bob, Neil, the viewers who have sent donations, the ones who've offered advice and encouragement in the comment section. You all have been with me every step of this way. I might be the one on the ground, but this project is truly a team effort, and I'm so thankful for every single one of you. And we're not done yet. We're just getting started. There's still a lot of work to be done. We're going to finish the lower front area, and then we'll keep pushing forward, taking it one step at a time. But I'm not in the short-term business. This building, this project is a long-term commitment. It's going to take time. It's going to take money. It's going to take all of us working together. So buckle up. We're going to be together on this one for a long time. Okay, and if Google Analytics is to be believed, there are currently about 40% of the viewers that made it to the end here. And out of that, I would say probably 95% are subscribers, because those are the people who watch to the end. But if this is your first time to the channel, I'm going to post a link to a video from 2 years ago, which was actually a year into the cleaning process. But it's a pretty early view of the chaos and the scope of all the stuff that I was dealing with when this whole journey started. So I really recommend that you go back and check that out, and you'll be able to get an appreciation for how far this process has come. So thank you guys so much. I'm so looking forward to another year of progress with you guys on my side.